Author Tillery here, the Mistress of Horror, and welcome back to my channel. Before we get started, how about you press that subscribe button, give this video a like, and ring that bell so you know when I'm uploading new videos. This is my Writer's Talk podcast that I do from time to time. On this podcast, I tend to just update you on what's going on in the writing world side for me, and so you're up to date about that. Since my author platform is definitely about informing you of those things, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about what's been going on with my debut novel plans and some of the other projects that I have currently planned. So yeah, it's been a interesting end of January into February, because we're into the middle of February now, and doing all the crazy life stuff along with trying to, get my writing career off the ground. And, I've published a few things, mostly short stories, and I'm also planning to solo release Fractals, which is currently in the anthology Served Cold. And just like I did with The Room Within, where it came out originally in local haunts. So I'm going to do the same thing. So you will actually get to purchase a copy of Fractals Solo in a paperback or e-back form. Probably later this year. I'm not going to push it out early or anything like that. But I like to give it time to be in the anthology before I release it solo. So that's why there's going to be a time difference in between that. That being said, that's one of the things that's on the mid burner, not the back burner, but the mid burner, because it is planned for this year. My main focus this year is Cagliostro and getting that out. I originally wanted to release it in April, but as a self-published author, there's finances to be considered with all the other things that I have to take care of in my day-to-day life. Being very realistic and transparent about this, if you want to do this the right way, it's going to cost some money. There are free avenues and things of that nature, but that's not the norm of the nature, I should say, because you have to pay for these things if you're definitely going to self-publish. And there's positive and negatives of self-publishing and positive and negatives of traditional publishing. And I looked at those positive and negatives when I decided to be a self-published author instead of being traditionally published. Even though it's costly to be a self-published author, to me it's not much difference in my mind, and I know to some people it is. But not trying to get off the subject, I'm just going to bounce back a little bit. Cagliostro will come out this year, but I'm just not sure of the month, because there needs to be a 3-month window in which the advertising is occurring. And currently I'm finishing up final edits for all that I can do myself to turn it over to my editor. So I plan to turn it over to my editor in March. It is much later than I originally planned for me to turn it over to my editor, but we live in the real world. Things don't always work out the way you want them to. So with that being said, he would have it close to somewhat of a month because of his other projects as well that he's editing. I wouldn't get that back until about April, really. So that being realistic about the release, I still need, to get it back and do my edits. And he is a good editor because he gives you part of it back as he finishes it. So he gives you about 10,000 words back, and you can go ahead and do your edits that you need to do and checks and stuff and such things, which helps. So that by the time he's finished, I'll be also finished my edits. And then, of course, there's all the other things you have to do before it's then published, So it's going to be a bit of a journey still. The to get the book out type of part. The part where you try to get the book out. So, what can I say? It's just, it's a journey that you have to go through if you want to do this the right way, So I'm not going to shortchange myself and not do the debut of my novel the way I want it to be done, and it will come out when it's ready. I am quite sure it will be this year, but we're looking to later this year at this point. I originally, like I said, wanted it to be April, but that's okay if that did not happen. So I will not shortchange this. So I definitely need the 3 month in between to, do the advertising to make sure that it has a great launch. So, but there's also another month or two in between that you're preparing for the marketing portion of the book release. So that means I need to have like a 5 month set of once I get it back from the editor for it to work out correctly. You see. So even if I got it back, let's say April, then May, June, I would be preparing probably around June to get the marketing plans ready to launch. So let's say July, August, September, I would have those 3 months for the advertising. So we're looking at October, which is good for my book per se because of the type of, it's a dark fantasy, so it has horror elements. So October would be not bad, is what I originally wanted to do anyway, back when I wanted to release it a year ago. So I'm not going to frown upon it. I think that's probably more realistic about when it would come out, late September, mid-October, before Halloween. So that's where I'm looking at. That's where my mindset is right now for it. So I'm not disappointed, but this is reality. Things don't always work out the way we plan. So that's what's going on with Cagliostro at the moment. Now moving on to the next segment of this podcast is my other projects. If you've seen me on some of the live streams that I had the chance to, be a part of, then I did talk about the fact that I was contacted, and I actually did a video where I was contacted by a publishing house, a traditional publishing house. They wanted to see if I had a project that they would be interested in because they found my website, blah, blah, blah. If you want to hear about that, you can simply check the link in the description for my video where I talked about that. And so it didn't really go anywhere. And it was because I had a story on the back burner that it was going to be a short horror collection that I ended up changing my mind once I talked to them and turned it to full horror-sized novels for this series. And the whole rest of the idea was, finished, what I wanted to do. So I offered it up. It was a series synopsis that I ended up writing. It's 5 books in the series. I wrote like the first 3 chapters of the first book. Then I'm about to finish it now. And I offered that up and my cover letter and all that stuff that you have to do for that. They end up saying that, they were going in a different direction, blah, 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 the usual type of jogging. But I actually don't know that I would have done it because I prefer to be a self-published author and I don't really have many, let's just say traditional publishing doesn't have many things to pull me in, to say the least. First off, I don't have control over my property anymore. I don't have control of the cover that would be on my book. So the negatives the reason why I wouldn't want to be a traditional published author. So it really would have depended on what the contract would have said if I would have taken the deal or not. Not likely, I'm thinking, because of the control that I would not have had over my book and story and series and all that jazz. And there's a lot of different things that can happen when you go traditional. So it was kind of like a fun tryout thing that I just wanted to say I've done once in my life. And I wasn't disappointed because I didn't really care if they wanted it or not, because I didn't know if I was even going to say yes. And they didn't offer in advance anyway. It was just straight to royalties, like through Amazon. I didn't necessarily think that they offered anything for me to be like jumping up and down, like, oh yeah, this is cool, even if they would have like wanted this specific story. And I'm kind of like, I've gotten feedback about this horror story that that's a series, and everyone seems to like it. It grips everyone. So I'm not sure what they didn't want of it. Maybe they were looking for something else and they thought maybe I would produce it. In my opinion, I believe that, and I'm not trying to bring race into this, but I believe that they contacted me because of my race. Being a female of color, their entire publishing house, the writers that they have published, none of them are people of color, at least from the outside looking from their list on their website. So maybe they were trying to get some more variety, far as like having people of other races, be published under them, especially in the horror genre. So I'm thinking that's possibly why they contacted me. That was my first inkling. And then they thought that I was going to produce something that they could possibly, show that they have someone of color writing under their banner. I don't know if this is true, but it's just my thought. And my stories are written the way I write them. That's just a fact. My character in this specific story actually is Korean. In this story that I submitted to them, and I don't know what they were looking for. Maybe they're looking for a female lead because it is a male lead, and it's possible they were looking for a female lead. I don't know. It's not as if they told me or anything like that. They did say if you wanted to submit something else, and I'm like thinking in my head, like, no way. That was your only chance with me. Not that that would have ended up being any chance, because I have a feeling that I wasn't going to probably take it even if they wanted to do the contract, because they didn't offer an advance. That was the first notch down for me. Though an advance, honestly, is kind of like a loan because you got to pay it all back in from your sales. So it's kind of like not impressed anyway. But the fact that there's no advance and then they go right into royalties up through Amazon, like, I don't really need you if you're going to just be selling my book through Amazon. That's nothing. I could do that myself. So what are you offering me that I can't do myself? That's what you need to come at me with if you're a traditionally published house. Like, if I could do it myself, I don't need you. So, some people like, well, they cover the editor and they cover the book cover, they cover the formatters, and then the blah, 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 and the market, they know it better, all this and that. Yes, these things are true. However, I'm not impressed that you could pay for my editor because I could pay for my own editor. I'm not impressed that you could pay for my formatter because I have my own formatter. I'm not impressed that you can pay for my cover artist because I prefer to pay for my own cover artist because I can pick what's on my book, because I'm the type of writer that my cover matters to me a big time for telling my story. I also kind of integrate that cover into telling some of the story to grab people. So if I have a cover idea, I'm really not going to like the fact that someone else has the control to tell me what the cover should be because of marketing reasons. Okay? So none of that impressed me. So I would have been waiting to hear something, that reason why I would bother putting a middle person in there to get some of my money. Because at the end of the day, that's what it turns out. They're just a person to get part of your money, So, and they getting money back because they did pay for all the things. But you still have to market yourself. I'm a new writer. They're not going to market me but so much. And these are the facts, whether you're traditional or self-published. You still have to market you. So again, I didn't see the pull. So it kind of was just a fun thing, and it kind of lit a fire under me to get me to write this story. So back on subject of the story and the project I'm working on, I've already released the name, Nana's Children, and the first book is When the Night Cries. And it is some of a werewolf tale for the first book. And it's in my mythos, in my world. It's characters that I have already been working on a long time. So I sent them, the publishing house, the entire synopsis for the series. So it was 5 books. And the letter that I got back from them was very much too mediocre in my mind for a series synopsis. So they had the series synopsis, and then the 5 books broke it down, so you pretty much know the beginning, the middle, and the end. And they didn't mention any of this in the initial, like, in that rejection letter or email, you want to call it. So it's kind of like, so out of the 5 books, are you saying you didn't like any of the ideas? I find that hard to believe. I'm just saying, you asked for series specifically, and then you don't even mention the series idea in the rejection email. But then asked me if I wanted to submit something else. Like, that was a little weird and off-putting. I don't understand their mindset. Like, I didn't get it. Not I'm saying like, oh, you wrote something so amazing. I'm not saying that because everyone likes what they like. But again, like, I don't know. It just seemed a bit too incomplete for someone who reached out to you and then nothing. I'm like, I'll keep an eye because I don't really trust anyone. So it's kind of like, anyone who's a writer already knows like you shouldn't trust anyone. I mean, they don't have bad rating or anything like that, but it's kind of like I send you all the information and you didn't, nothing. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like okay, but I digress on that. But the book series is still going to happen. I'm planning to release the first book. I'm going to do my, to get that book out by Halloween. Going to do my best because I have other projects. As you know, Cagliostro. Then I'm releasing Fractal solo, and then I also have another project that I am currently in, an anthology, an erotic anthology that's going to be under my other pen, which is Lavinia Hart, which is actually based off my middle name. So I have other things that I'm in the middle of doing. But I do plan to release that this year, especially since I've talked about it and there's others who know about it. I want to get it out, So it's a lot trying to balance my writing career and getting books written and edited and all these things, and then of course the finances part of it. The finance part of your getting your book out is not easy because you have all your other things that you have to take up. Your mortgage, your rent, or whatever you're paying, your other utility, your bills, your vehicles you're taking care of. You have a child. In my case, I have a child. You have schooling, to pay for. You have all these things, and then I'm also trying to buy a house in a year. So it's kind of like I have a lot of stuff going on, and then paying for that too. And it's not cheap. And I never go cheap end. I try to just pay for what I want, and I don't shortchange myself on what I want. I will find a way to pay for it, whether that be through payment plans or saving or whatever, and then do the thing I want to do for my book. I definitely put all I can into my projects, so I will never cut corners for my books. I will say that. And I know people disrespect self-published authors a lot with thinking that they're only going to put out crap or whatever, all the stuff that we hear. And it's not the case for everyone. There are always going to be people who try to take shortcuts and don't put all their all into something. And that doesn't mean that's what everyone does. So I wish people would stop that rhetoric. But, what can I say? And, moving into the next part of this podcast, coming to the end of the run here, I wanted to just talk a little bit about, the spending for the project. And this specific one would be Cagliostro. And so in this case, I paid about $1,100 for my book cover. And I do not regret it. I found the cover artist that I wanted, and that's the one I wanted to go with. And I did payment plans and paid for that. Then I had a first round of editing and critique edit from an editor who turned out not to be the editor for me. And I paid that person about $1,100 for that. And she did not do a good job. So, of course, lesson learned. I did research on her and all the things that I should do, but I can't say for sure that this editor will be good. So I try to go now and search for an editor that other writers that I know have worked with. So I did find a new editor, so that's neither here nor there. But you can see I already spent over $2,000 for just those two things. And I still have like the website that I do to show, to talk a little bit about Cagliostro, and then my equipment that I use to do my author platform. This is tied into my first book, of course, because that's one of the main reasons why I have all these different things. And we're not even talking about getting into like when, marketing that I'm going to do, that whole budget for that. And then, formatter. Thank God I actually have an awesome formatter that is a friend of mine who's also a writer that is amazing at formatting. And I can't wait to have her do it. And my formatter is Aphrodite Lee, who is amazing at everything she does. So I'm blessed to have her be my formatter. And it's just so many things that you have to pay for. And I don't know what my end cost is going to be for this specific book, but I am going to do a video series on that as well. So I'm probably going to do one later this year, about like the first portion of paid money that I spend, or the budget for Cagliostro. And then there's like the mid budget, which is probably the marketing, and then marketing continues on after your book is out. So there's still going to be money and involved even after it's out. So I'm going to be very transparent when I do these videos and podcasts. I'm probably going to put them in podcast form, talking about the different amounts things cost and stuff like that. But yes, it's definitely a journey and a half, and I'm still going through it, through the thick of it. And I will be sharing these podcasts probably once a month, updating you. And of course, my author platform, which is the last leg of this podcast. As you see, I upload once to bi-weekly. So I upload once a week or bi-weekly, depending on if I had another live stream or another show I did with another author on AuthorTube or something like that. Then I may not put a video up that week, depending. And as you know, I have the Critique Group Live Horror Edition that comes out once a month, live stream on the last Sunday that I do. And then I'm working on launching my Lair of the Mistress show that I want to do. Is all horror-based stuff. So it's still a lot of stuff to do and take care of with my schedule, my regular life stuff. So please do bear with me. And I do appreciate everyone who watches my stuff and comes and listens and finds out what I'm doing. I really appreciate that. But yes, so you can always check with me. I do ring the bell because that way you know when I do upload something. But generally it is once a week. If I, again, don't upload once a week, it will be bi-weekly because I don't like to miss more than a week in between. And it's not me missing, it's most likely my schedule and the way I need to upload and do these things. But yes. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this podcast and just getting to know about what's going on with me as an author. If you have experienced any of these things or you want to chat about something, please do feel free to comment below. I'll leave links in the description like I always do to some of my other videos that are relatable to this podcast. But yes, and I will see you in my next video or podcast or live stream. Stay scared.